experiences on the islands of Lewis and Harris. I say islands, the one island with two names due to weird countiness that's not really worth going into. But this was, I think, one of the best martyr trips I've ever had, and hopefully this footage will show that off nicely.
No, I definitely agree. So we stayed in this sort of area. It was like the South Lochs,
yeah,
was the name of it. We got an Airbnb here, and it was amazing. Had a fireplace, brilliant bathroom, good beds, and we just sort of, when we were done with the day, played cards and just had some nice evenings there. And drank some beers, and I definitely recommend staying there if you're ever in the area. And you get this lovely winding road which connects it to the main road, full of little lock-ins and rocky bits, and on a nice day later on you can start to see some of the mountains of Harris and to the south.
It's just a really nice location, and you picked it out as a sort of central bit that we could stay in, and it just really worked really well as a base to explore. Essentially this trip was how much of the islands can we get in, and across this you'll see bits from both Harris and Lewis, west coast, east coast, a bit of everything. So this was sort of the drive in, and we're coming up against, I think we're not too far from one of the best things. Here it is.
Oh yeah, just behind this van, isn't it?
Yeah, there's one of the weird concrete bus shelters that you get on the island. They're actually really well designed, so it means it's like 4 corners, so any bit you stand in you can avoid the wind, and because there's so little traffic on these roads you'll always hear the bus coming even if you're facing away from it.
It was strange. It was the very first time I'd ever encountered any of those bus shelters, and then when I got back, suddenly I was getting lots of posts on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that of these bus shelters, and everyone seemed to have taken an interest in them. Either that or my phone was just listening and starting to feed these things to me, but they were all over my my Facebook and everything. Strange things.
Seems similar as well. All of a sudden they were becoming a big deal, and then I think shortly after we went, if you also watch Steve Marsh, chances are if you watch him you watch us potentially. But he went a couple of weeks after and saw them as well, so yeah, everyone was raving about those bus shelters.
We stopped here because it was a lovely rainbow. You've probably seen it. There's a little bit of it on the footage there. We had a nice wee sort of photo shoot there of the weather and the rainbow, and it was just a lovely little spot to get the day started with. And yeah, I think we're seeing some of those mountains in the south of the island in Harris now, including the biggest one, which is called Clisham. I think I'm pronouncing that right anyway. But I think we were just. What were we doing this day?
We were driving up to Stornoway for the first time, and I think obviously we went down this road each time, but this was the nicest footage of it because of that rainbow that was going back and forth the whole time. Blood Bridge.
Oh, the Blood Bridge, yes.
Essentially when we first came in we drove this road at night and that bridge basically had standing water, and a little bit of red that came through made it look as if it was covered in blood. So yeah, Blood Bridge. It
was very eerie. This whole holiday started off at night. We got off the ferry and we weren't really seeing anything, so it was kind of strange that we had gone all this distance and passed all these things, no idea they were actually there, and then in the morning we finally got to see where it was that we were actually at, and it was an amazing reveal.
It just felt really special to arrive somewhere at night, drive through storms and wind and rain, and then the following morning driving out to go and see what it's all about, and it all opens out in front of you and you realise just how dramatic a landscape you drove through without seeing any of it. And that's us coming up to the junction, so from here we split off in multiple different directions and we'll show you some of that footage. So this was, I guess, my favourite part of the Isle of Lewis. We drove this way to look at some sea stacks and some beaches on the west coast, and this was an amazing area. The sea stacks were brilliant to come and look at, and it felt so rugged as you can see from here. It kind of feels maybe a bit more Harrisy on this side of the island, but I really enjoyed this day out.
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit of a myth that Lewis is completely flat like the Netherlands and Harris is this massive rugged mountainous landscape. There's definitely a sort of bleed over on each side, I think, and there is a part of Western Lewis which is very much in character with the area that's known as Harris, and this is one of those areas. You've got the higher mountains off to the right here. They're off out of shot at the moment, but I think if there was one area of the part of Lewis that I think was really impressive in a geographical sense, it was this one.
I think we drove here in the afternoon, had a look at those sea stacks, and then this is part of the drive back again. So from here we were heading back to the South Locks where we were staying. Well, I'm not sure the whole amount of that footage because it goes on for a while, but even there you can see some of the dramatic beaches that are along the way. We never actually made it to all of them. The one to the left there we never got to.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure why we missed it out. I think it's just one of those things when you're driving sometimes, if you don't see an obvious pull-in or a place to go.
We were doing the island fairly comprehensively, so I suppose we couldn't stop at every single thing. But the joy of that is that when we come back, we'll find these places that we didn't stop again, and we'll fill in those blanks next time. But I really like the beaches around here because the sand's incredibly golden and it's very unspoiled. We'll see some more later on, but you definitely get some of them out this way if you're coming down this road.
I think we had a bit of a glimpse there at some of the mountains. You don't really, well, I didn't think of it as, I knew it had mountains on it, but I didn't expect it to be as dramatic and as feel like such a broad range as you actually get on the island. I assumed there was a few sort of bigger peaks to the south and that was kind of it, but there's a lot of it. And I think another trip, maybe actually take the day to climb one of them, climb Clishan would probably be a good plan.
Absolutely, yeah. I think those mountains really stand out more. They're not high, but because they're on an island surrounded by a lot of flatter areas, they really pop out. And yeah, they're not just sort of big, giant, sort of heathery lumps. They've got character, they've got rockiness, they've got all sorts of different points of interest on them. So this is a weird valley, this one as well. It's kind of like it just eroded with water or something like that. Sort of more of a gorge, this.
I really like coming through this part. This was a bit of a surprise. It's kind of like the Grand Canyon of Lewis.
It's a really good road, this one, and eventually it kind of comes back up to the sort of area where you'll see a lot of the stone circles and the brocks and the prehistoric stuff if you're more into sort of history and archaeology. It's this sort of side of the island that's the best for it, but we're not quite in that area at the moment. This is kind of offshoots from it.
And this road, it's kind of advertised as like a a tourist circle, so basically you come off the main road and then there's a couple of really nice beaches along here. So basically the title card you saw for this part of it comes from one of the beaches that we're just about to approach. I think I've kind of edited it in a way that cuts out the car parks. We went down there, parked up, and that's the beach down at that point.
It's beautiful down there, and skimming stones and just having a walk around. It was a very peaceful beach, that one. I enjoyed it, but was there something there that we were trying to get to but we didn't? I think we were trying to find, was it like an old village centre or something like that?
I can't remember that part. Very likely that's maybe what we were doing, but we followed this road round and there's another beach that we stopped at.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think photographically this was a paradise of a place to be. There's so much to enjoy about it, and because we were in March where there's less people around, generally all these places we got them to ourselves. Even, for example, Luscantire was never busy to the point where you were finding it difficult to get in between people. It was just basically perfect.
The beach here, I remember there was a kind of a big river through that beach. It was quite hard to get over. I think it was difficult to jump over it. Yeah, it's this one here. Kind of parked down near where that cottage was.
Yeah, because there was a little car park there. It was like some kind of hall or something. But yeah, we stopped here. This was like the last big stop of the day. But a lovely place to kind of watch a sort of, not quite sunset, just a peaceful end to things.
Okay, so we're now on the south road to Harris. As you can see there, the lovely mountains are coming into view. There was a wee folly thing, we didn't actually go to it, but it's like a little tower thing just at the side there. So you'll pass that on the main road up to Stornoway in the north, and it's well worth having a wee peek at it if you're there. This is where the scenery really starts to kind of open up. You've got that lovely viewpoint ahead of you there, and we're going to be driving right through those mountains in a moment once we've gone through this bit.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like this is the road that links Tarbert with Stornoway, so it's the main road, north-south. And for the most part we had quite, not bad days, but they were often just a bit grey. But this was the day we were actually going home, and we had perfect weather for it. You could see by the reflections in the side of the side of the road there, just how calm it was as well. And sort of just beyond this point, we approached this woodland area, and this felt quite unique for a Scottish island, in the respect that you don't often find woodlands on the islands.
This was it here. We pulled in, very coniferous, and there was sort of boardwalks and little lock-ins to have a wee look around, but it definitely felt unusual for where we were. I don't know when it happens. It's a little bit further south than this, but we'll hopefully see the sign that demarcates where Lewis ends and Harris begins on the southbound journey. It's a strange one. If you look on the map, there's two lochs that kind of jab in to the island, and there's a sort of invisible line that connects those two lochs, and that's how they differ. I think it's in this sort of area, isn't it?
I think it's where the road drops down before the beef of the mountains
I think that was it,
begins. It could well have been it.
Yeah.
That was it right there, that little white sign.
Yeah.
Again, if you watch Steve Marsh videos, he actually makes a point of coming up to that sign to show you it. We never actually stopped for the sign. I'm sorry, I know that's we should do, it's borders and everything else. It's interesting, but I'm trying to remember how it works. I think it is historically Lewis is connected to Inverness and Rossshire and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the south's connected to. I'm sorry, I should know counties better.
Yeah, there's Ross and Cromarty, and then there's sort of Inverness, Shire, Sutherland. I really don't know what they're all part of or historically were part of. But yeah, we're now firmly into Harris, and we're probably looking at Clisham on the left there, maybe?
I think so. If you're watching this, I think I've doubled up a clip and I'm just going to run with it. So we're seeing the same section twice. I'm really sorry about that.
I've had a bit of Groundhog Day there, because I remember I was going to say something about those bendy bits on the road there, and then it all went past, and then it came back again. That's definitely Clisham though at the back there. And this is what we weren't seeing on the first day when we came off the ferry, so it was nice to see it in all this glorious weather.
So, a bit of editor's note, when I put these together, I do try my best to make sure there's no faults. Some of them creep through, and if it's a normal one where I'm just sticking in text, it's fine, because we're doing this as a live recording, watching it for the first time. Yeah. Whoops.
You've got to leave it in.
It's funny.
It's going to be people's favourite bit of the video. That's a lovely mountain there.
And it's just the reflections and everything that day. It was just wonderful.
Yep. I would thoroughly recommend, in general, coming here at this sort of time of year, because the weather, although it's probably a bit on the colder side, you do get these lovely days in March that just creep through. We've been fairly lucky with them over the years, I would say, and yeah, it's a bit quieter as well, although if we were advising you to go, we've probably made it busier for ourselves.
We'll have to go in February instead.
Yeah, oh well.
But I imagine maybe August time these would be alive with heather as well, and that would be quite a nice thing to see. I think the issue is that they bump the cost of the ferries up in the summer as well, and so whilst I wouldn't say this is the cheapest March holiday we've ever had, we still managed to make it work budget-wise, and we took the ferry over from Euan on the Isle of Skye rather than the ferry at Ullapool over to Stornoway, because that was a shorter route and therefore cheaper, and it also worked out better time-wise for us as well.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's parts of the road up to Uig that are nice, but if you really want to do, I think, the best journey, it's good to take in sort of Loch Aber, Skye, all those, because we've never really done that before, where we've, you know, Skye's just been part of a commute really, which was a strange sensation. But we had a little bit of time either end on Skye, which was really unusual as well. So normally that's a destination, not a stop on a journey.
Although we left with enough time to spend a little bit on Skye on the way up. On the way back, the ferry on this day, it got us back over about 5ish, I think, and we essentially just bombed it back to Dundee after that. There wasn't really anything much else we could do.
But that ferry back had some really amazing views. One of the best ferry journeys I've ever had in my life, I would say. You could look back to these islands which you just left, but you were also seeing the Cuillins coming up, and I think maybe in the distance some of the other of the Outer Hebrides as well.
And we were kind of sailing into the sunset, and it was It was lovely. And yeah, this is Tarbet. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, there you go.
And that was Tarbet. We're away from it. It's not very big. We'll come back later.
Yeah, so that's where the ferry dock's at, and there was a nice wee shop that we got some lunch at, and yeah, a nice viewpoint to watch the ferry coming in. But we're now on the south roads, and we're into the southern part of Harris, because there's North Harris and there's South Harris. I think Tarbet's the line of demarcation. There was a offshoot here which was called the Golden Road. I think we tried a bit of it, didn't we?
We did the one that wasn't the Golden Road. We did like the road next to it, and that'll come up later in the video as well. Yeah, there's too many demarcations. It's just one big island that seems to be split into 3 sections. But this is essentially the road you would follow to go to Luskentyre, and I can't remember the name of the place. Slightly further south of there is a connection to the ferry to Uist as well. So Leverborough, was that the name of it?
Leverborough, yeah. Leverborough to Loch Maddie, isn't it? Yeah. There's a ferry that goes. I've not done that one yet. That's one for the future. But we're now getting pretty close to Luskentyre. I think in a minute we're probably going to start seeing it over these hills.
If it's not for the traffic in front of us, we'll see it better. But
yeah, but you'll be taken away by how sort of white and glorious the sand is. Now, Luskentyre is already pretty famous, but I don't think seeing the pictures and and watching the videos really do it justice compared to what it's like to actually be there, because I don't know, I just got an incredible sense of place when I was there, a sort of calm that I'd never really known, and I just thought it was just the most beautiful thing.
It's one of those places that you think, right, everyone goes here when when they come, and that's it coming up actually now. And you get there and it's every bit what you want it to be, yet more. It actually delivers and then builds on what you expect to get from it as a place. And I think again, probably helped by the fact that we were here off season, but even then the car parking is actually limited. So the number of people that can realistically fit onto the beach area is probably controlled by the fact that there's not that much space anyway. So I think that kind of keeps it special. If you live here and the summer is horrific, let us know.
Yeah, it's sort of self-limiting. There's a sense here that, if it's too busy, come back another time, do something else instead, which is really helpful to keep numbers controlled. But there you go. That's not even the best bit, really. The best bit's sort of around the corner, and the waves are incredible here. And you see off the mountains to the west of the island as well. It's just a stunning place.
It's turquoise waves crashing in, and this approach road kind of gives you an idea of the scope of the beach, but not the beauty of the beach when you're standing on it. You get to the end and then you follow this little path by a stream, and that brings you out onto the corner where you get the views back towards Clisham and the rest of the Harris Mountains. There they are in the background now. So.
Oh yeah. There was a little Harris Tweed shop here as well, I think, along the way.
And that's us coming into the car park. So at the end of the video, you'll get a chance to have a look at some photos.
So we're beginning this drive in Callanish, which is famous for a series of different stone circles. I can't remember if it's Callanish 1, it's probably Callanish 1 that is quite iconic. It's a really large stone structure, really tall, kind of 12 feet tall or whatever they are, stones, and it's probably one of the most ancient monuments in the whole of the British Isles. And there's some smaller structures dotted around it. I think, did you say there was about 8 Callanishes? I
think at least 8, because the photo at the start of the clip was Callanish 3, and we're heading towards Great Bernera, you could say that the island's name.
Great Bernera maybe?
Great Bernera.
I think it is. I don't remember.
And that, once we got there, that had Callanish 8 marked on the map, so there's definitely lots of them. And nearby to all this, it's not in the clip, but there's also Carlisle Broch, which was spectacular as well.
Really good. If you can go there, do so, because that's a really fun explorer. And you can even go up some of the stairs. They allow you to do that to an extent. And the stone circles are really good as well. Callanish one was pretty straightforward to get to. Some of the other ones were a bit out there, and the paths were kind of spluey a bit, and just, you know, that kind of horrible schlootness that you get. That might have just been the time of year that we were at, but
I get the feeling unless it's icy, then you're going to be stuck in the mud going out to these places. So this is actually quite a fun little drive that we went on here to get to this next island, because obviously we're on Lewis Harris and we're about to leave Lewis Harris to go to another island, and when you get to the top of that island there's a little version of the next one. So there's a lot of smaller islands connected to this whole big thing, and I quite like that.
Yeah, we live on an island and we've gone to an island to sail to another island and then go over a bridge to another island to look at another island. So yeah, it's quite hard to follow really, but I think there's about 5 islands removed there, so.
It's the joy of living in a coastal place, but there was an ulterior motive to coming here. Basically, if you've obviously watched the other Norwegian videos that tend to be here, I like my infrastructure. I'm always making a big deal out of the bridges and tunnels, and there was 3 bridges that I wanted to specifically see on Lewis Harris, and we're coming up to the first one, which has now actually been bypassed. I think it was built in the 30s. It's a really nice sort of concrete structure, kind of painted white. This is it coming up just now, so you'll see the old one on the left. And then they've had to obviously replace it with this new Bailey Bridge, but plenty of parking, so we could have a look at the bridge, or I could look at the bridge. Then Euan and Andrew were able to go and look at Callanish 8 and enjoy the stones and the history whilst I doked around.
Yeah. The new bridge kind of takes away from the old one a little bit, but you can't really avoid these things. You want to be able to get across. I think I've read somewhere that this island was pretty much on its last legs in terms of human habitation until that initial bridge was built, and there was a real campaign to get it going. It was either that or Scalpe, or maybe it was both of them had the similar story. But
I think, yeah, Scalpe was down to very few residents. Another bridge that you will see later on in this video. But it's a very different structure. Both Scalpe and this island, I'm not going to say its name because I'll get it wrong every single time.
Great Burner, I think.
As long as it's not Great Burma. They both had ferries across to them at one point. You could definitely see the old ferry terminals for Scalpe. I'm not so sure about this one, but yeah. It's nice that they've actually connected them. It doesn't feel like a very Scottish thing to do. We tend to not build the bridge and leave the status quo intact. Looking at you, Corran Ferry.
It would be such a straight fix, wouldn't it? But, oh well, you know, got to keep things the way they are. It's the British way.
Just move to Norway, then they'll actually give us some infrastructure. Anyway, so we're driving up to the top of the island, essentially to go see another really nice beach. And I think there was an abandoned village, but we couldn't work out where it was. It might have been a bit of a walk. And again, we were just cramming the day with as much as possible. And because the one downfall of March is once it's 6 o'clock, it's time to go to the pub, or in this case, house drinking. But yeah, that's one of the things about the March holidays. You've got a nice clear defined end of the day where you can just sit back, have a couple of beers, a couple of whiskies, play some cards, listen to some good music. And that's us coming up to the car park at the end of the road. So from here we just went on a walk and enjoyed the scenery. Okay, so we're starting at yet another beach. I mean, this area is famous for beaches, and there's something kind of funny that happens here. So we're leaving the area, these Highland cattle have come out to block the road. So you can see our good friend Euan trying to shoo them on, not making any headway at all. So normally I feel like if you drive at them, they kind of follow the car until they get bored and wander off the road. But these guys were definitely not up for it.
I think this is one of these examples of things that are hilarious in retrospect, but at the time there was a little bit of worry that they could actually damage the car with the horns, and you know, it was quite frustrating that they just weren't going. Oh, there's another one. They're starting to move now.
Yeah, that's the farmer has seen what's going on. He's like, yeah, I'll get rid of them for you. They listen to me.
Come to rescue us. We'd just been to that place, and we'd come down this road. We weren't as prepared as we maybe should have been. We didn't have any drinks, did we? And there was a vending machine to the rescue, but it only took cash. We didn't have any cash. We had card, because I guess it was naive of us to expect that a vending machine on a remote part of an island would be one of the up-to-date ones that took cash. But
to be fair, I wasn't even expecting it to be there in the first place. Yeah. So this was on the Sunday. Essentially, when we drove up on the Saturday, got the ferry across on the Saturday evening. And then on the Sunday we decided to explore Harris. We had a drive down to Luskintyre on a slightly greyer drive than what you saw on the previous clip. But and on the way back we went down this road to see where it went. Essentially we were just trying to see as much of the island as possible, and this road went quite far to another beach, so thought we'd check it out. And it was quite a nice drive as well, a little bit bumpy at this stage, but yeah, I think we'd hoped there would be at least a small shop in Tarbert to get something from, because some of the shops now open on a Sunday, I think. I don't know for sure. Either that or we just screwed up and didn't bring enough supplies with us.
Probably. It was just an oversight, I guess. Yeah, the beach at the end of this one, Hushnish, that was quite a nice one as well. Not as splendid as Luskintyre, but certainly worth having another look at. You know, you're spoiled for choice for beaches here. Those cyclists, were they the only ones that we really had any encounter with the whole time?
I think so, and it's not as if they caused any real issue. You can't go too fast on these roads. Yeah. Again, you get a nice view of some of the mountains. Most of the Harris Mountains are really to the left of the car, but left of the road. But you do still see some of the mountains of South Harris quite over there in the distance, which was nice.
Yeah, there wasn't much view of the mountains on this day because of all those clouds. As you saw in the other clip, they clear off and you get lovely views eventually, but we still didn't really know what Clishan was like or any of these mountains because of these clouds.
Oh, we're coming up to a really good part.
Yes. So we're driving by a big sort of baronial castle with a gatehouse, and yeah, it's just kind of on the estate, but it's a public road as well, which is really quite cool.
It just comes out of nowhere, and wow, I'm actually driving past this big castle in the middle of nowhere. I guess because there's just no need to do anything, but I don't know if the castle's lived in, I don't know if it's history, that's more your forte.
Yeah, I don't know anything either. But what I did notice was I saw it, there was an advert for like a Gaelic language crime drama on the BBC iPlayer, and the background, I had the two cops at the front in the picture, and then behind it was that castle. So maybe it plays an important part in that TV programme. So go and find it.
I think I may have heard of that show, but I've not seen it. Is that the first like high budget crime drama that's ever been done in Gaelic, or am I imagining that?
You could be right, yeah. I might check it out at some point, but it'll be subbed.
Yeah, I'll need, as long as it's subbed and not overdubbed, which would be horrific.
Yeah, no, there's nothing worse than the lips not lining up with the voices.
You watch something that's come from like a German drama or something, and it's got people speaking in English and it doesn't match, and just give me subtitles. I want to be able to pick up, even if I don't know the language, at least pick up on the emotion of the voice coming from the person that was actually saying it. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, back to the island, which didn't have any crime or drama whilst we were there.
Yeah.
So we know of.
We're kind of coming towards the end of this extension of the road now, aren't we? It's sort of coming in a bit. You've got the little sort of inlet down there. Was there some kind of mill or something? Yeah, there was like an abandoned water mill or something right near the end of the road. So I think we go around the next bit of headland. Yeah. There was definitely some. I remember seeing whilst I was looking at doing the mapping pieces for the title cards for the video, it mentioned abandoned whaling station. So I wonder if that's what it was. I find that you go to a place, you research as much as you can, and when you leave and you go back to look at things, because you've then got familiarity with the place, you notice things on the map that you think, oh yeah, that would make sense now. I wish I'd spent more time with it. But it's one of these things, you never fully know a place until you've been there and had a chance to then go back, and it's why revisits are always worth it, I think. No, absolutely. The first time you're just finding your feet and getting a general sense of things, and then the second time it's really, picking it apart in a more extensive detail. Mr. Sheep.
This is definitely an animal clip, because I'm sure we had a deer run across the road whilst we were talking about crime dramas.
We did indeed, yeah. So this is obviously the wildlife hub of the Isle of Harris.
You get your Highland cattle, you get your sheep, and you get deer, which is everything you would expect from a Highlands road trip.
Yeah. This trip really had it all, and you have those lovely turquoise waters down there. Mountains, water, wildlife, good just balance of everything really.
Featuring crime and drama.
Oh, crime and drama. Yeah. And historical stuff as well, we saw a lot of that.
So I think, yeah, this is coming up towards the old whaling station area, so let's see what we can actually spot.
Which is the thing with dash cam, is sometimes you don't see everything, but you can see the chimney down there, we're just sort of passing.
So that was it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we're about to turn onto the main north-south road again. But now that we know what that is, it'll probably be more interesting for you to go and have a look at. But the other thing I find is there's not usually always parking for these things unless you want to abandon it in a parking or in a passing place. It's not the done thing unless you're only stopping for 5 seconds.
Exactly, yeah. And guaranteed that 5 seconds that you need, someone else will also be there and then take tremendous umbrage.
And I thought I'd include this little bit again. We're going to follow this back onto Lewis and up to the forest that we talked about in one of the previous clips, because I think it's nice to see this both on the perfect conditions we had at the end of the trip and in these slightly moodier conditions. It gives you a really good feel for the mountains, plus it's the opposite direction, so therefore it's different.
Yeah, again, a totally different perspective on it. And yeah, this is the road obviously we came in on the first day, pitch black. Didn't really see anything but the road and maybe the stuff at the very side of it there. A bit more opened up now. But yeah, the weather changes this dramatically. It's very sort of bleak right now, sort of cold seeming, and yeah, it's amazing how much the sunny day alters it.
And I think it's good seeing it in both conditions, because this is, and imagine what you get 90% of the time. I think we were really lucky with that last day that we had. In fact, so lucky because the following day there was a storm that would have cancelled the ferry, so if we hadn't left on the Wednesday afternoon, we could have been stuck there till the weekend with probably nowhere to stay very easily.
Yeah, I have to have made a panicked phone call to the chap that owned the Airbnb, thinking we stay longer. To be honest, it wouldn't have been a terrible problem if we were able to get accommodated, because we did enjoy it a lot here. But yeah, now we're coming back around the glitchy bends, I think.
Yeah, we're coming back to the point where we go onto the Isle of Lewis. Again, editor's notes. If this is interesting for anybody, the dashcam records sections in blocks of 3 minutes, and I think what I did there is I accidentally put the same block in twice, and I just kind of do a quick scroll through to make sure it all looks fine. Lewis, I think now, anyway.
Yeah.
I do a quick scroll through to make sure it looks fine, and sometimes when you're doing that, it just blends together, or the PC lags a little bit, and I just missed it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I think we're on the way now, not a million miles away from the weird sort of pine forest that we found and did a bit of walking.
That's the Lewis sign just there.
We're now on to Lewis.
It doesn't really, you feel a transition more coming south, heading north, because it's still fairly mountainous at this point. Yeah. I don't think unless the sign was there, you would really know that you've changed. Yeah,
it's not an obvious point to change over at least to the eye of the person driving, but it does eventually. I think once you're kind of north of where we were staying, that's when you notice a big shift in the landscape. But we have this strange forest here that, I mean, it must be planted, but it was quite a nice sort of walk, wasn't it?
Yeah, we just were random boardwalks and it was very pleasant.
So this is Stornoway, capital of the island, home of Lewis Castle and Cracking War Memorial, which is a big tower at the edge of the town. A few shops, pubs and amenities. It's really the only substantial sized place on the whole island, but quite a nice wee place, I think.
It's definitely the only place that feels like it has got any sizable weight to it. It's where you've got the supermarkets, it's where the big ferry from Mullapool comes into. So if you need supplies, then this is obviously the place to go. But on this drive, we're going to follow the east coast of the island up to a place called Tolster, which sounds too much like toaster. I do apologise to anyone that lives here for making stupid jokes about where you live. I did like it here. So this was a bit of a different sort of drive. This was exploring more of what you would maybe consider to be the flatter lands of the Isle of Lewis. Not that it's flat by any means, but it's not got the same dramatic peaks. However, there were some spectacular beaches on this side of the island that were definitely worth visiting. And on top of that, when it gets to the end of this clip, we get to the Gary Bridge, better known as the Bridge to Nowhere. So this was the second bridge of my we have to go see 3 bridges plan.
So yeah, what you'll find from this sort of point onwards, it's there's a lot of small settlements in short succession, both on the east coast and the west coast of the northern part of the island. And you've got this sort of flat moorland. There's not a lot of trees, little clumps of trees in places like that. There's no great relief though or anything like that. It's just this, but plenty of beaches. But I'm guessing this is where the vast majority of people live, because it's within the orbit of Stornoway, whereas Harris is a bit more out there and a bit more difficult to get to.
And of course Stornoway has its own airport with links to Inverness, Edinburgh and Glasgow, I believe, but it doesn't do Aberdeen. So yeah, if you're from the east coast like we are, you don't get to fly there. Well, you can go to Edinburgh, which is, I suppose, just as easy to get to.
But a missed opportunity nonetheless. So yeah, nice clear day, nice blue sea. So the sea to the right there is called the Minch, which is basically the passage of water which sits between mainland Scotland and the Outer Hebrides. And on a clear day you can see right across to some of the mountains of sort of northern Scotland, Assynt, places like Sylvan and Stackpolly. I think you can see all of them if you get a good day.
You definitely got a photo of Sylvan from, we actually took it from the very top of Lewis, which is called the Butt of Lewis. You'd expect the Butt of Lewis to be on the other side, but anyway, I've already been horrible enough. But yeah, I've definitely seen those from there, and that was really a nice experience. It kind of goes back to like a childhood experience or teenage experience that I had on the Isle of Skye. We used to stay on a place on the Isle of Skye where you would stand at the end of this peninsula and you could see the mountains of Lewis Harris rising in the background. And of course I never fully appreciated just how good those mountains would be at that stage of my life, but I do kind of remember those long summer evenings looking in that direction. And something I guess you don't realise, that the ferry sailing from Uig to Tarbert, I think it's only 28 to 30 miles, so they're really not that far apart. You assume that you're going to be such a long way, but when you see the Scottish mainland over the water, it really puts it all into perspective.
So we're getting a wee bit further up, and like I say, it's more settlements. They're all a bit like this, sort of slightly scattered houses. A lot of ruined and abandoned houses, a lot of ones that you think could be fixer-uppers, but I think it was quite staggering the amount of properties that were just sort of semi-derelict. I wonder why it's the case, but maybe it's just not economical to live here.
It's either that or it's not viable to do them up when a new build is going to be more reliable, potentially, who knows.
There's a lovely wee beach down there. We did that, we walked around it for a while. I think we spent a lot of time on that beach. I think we did the whole thing, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we walked from start to finish.
It was maybe too much. We probably could have did just a bit of it. But
I think it was my fault because I was pissing about in the dunes. Anyway, this is the very last bit. You can see in the distance there is the Gary Bridge, and essentially the plan was to link this up with the Butt of Lewis. They built the bridge, but they never extended the road any further because they hated the landowner.
Yeah. I think, yeah, it was Lord Leverhulme, I think, the guy who had the Unilever company, that still exists and owns a lot of your favourite products.
And we're not doing any product placement, so that's the end of that clip. So let's take one last look at the Isle of Harris. and we're going to follow. I don't think this was the Golden Road. If it was, I do apologise, I can't quite remember because there was a couple of offshoots, but this one went round in a big loop that we were able to follow.
More sheep getting in the way. The wildlife loves to obstruct your way, but you've just got to roll with it in these places. It's funny, you know, eventually.
Sheep aren't exactly a big issue. Sheep aren't going to do anything to the car unless you hit them, and you're never going to be going fast enough, you would hope, on a road like this to cause any issues in the first place. But yeah, I did enjoy this little run. We actually stopped, and you'll see that further around, where we found it was almost like a little dam, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. This is a very kind of rocky, rugged sort of road, typical of the kind of east of the island. Again, maybe similar to the South Lochs where we were staying, but maybe a little bit more bumpy and definitely less sort of good roads. But yeah, this was fun, and it goes all the way around to the bottom, doesn't it? So.
And on what I found generally though, the roads on Lewis Harris I thought were really good. I'm always a bit worried about what damage some of these places are going to do to the car over time, but thankfully, yeah, this place generally I thought was decent.
Yeah.
There's so many places you go in Scotland where you just get the crap knocked out of your car by potholes, and yeah. But I think this is we're still heading south, and I think it's maybe around about here somewhere it starts to loop back to the north. It's basically just a big circuit, but yeah,
it's a very nice sort of peaceful place, you know. It'd be nice to live here, but you'd obviously be far away from amenities and whatnot, so you'd have to be pretty self-supporting, I guess, have a good stock of stuff. But I do think it could be quite a nice place if you're inclined to be a little bit away from the world and have you know, a need for peace and quiet. It'd be a nice place to have a little house, of which there are plenty of ruins to fix up if you're interested.
So I think this is us kind of coming up to that little loch that we mentioned in a second. Potentially, maybe not. But I think one of the things, if you were to take away the houses, this reminds me of some of the high ground in Norway in some respects. It's in terms of when you get onto the big plateaus where it's just rock and little lakes and stuff all around. Even though we're quite close to sea level, it kind of has that feel to it. Yeah, this is the little place we stopped at.
Oh yes, yeah, I remember this now.
Because amusingly, I was scrolling Facebook, killing time and wasting time more likely, but I saw a photo from that exact spot that someone else had taken. It just pinged up at random, so I thought that was quite nice to see it again, but with someone else's perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I completely concur with you of that kind of plateau Norway kind of look to this area, as you'll see on some of Simon's other dashcam videos of Norway. Look them up and you'll definitely notice a comparison between these two places, but definitely completely different elevations. This is obviously sea level stuff, and that's way up at the top of the world, so it's strange how it can come up with a similar sort of effect.
I think there's definitely more grass in these areas, but yeah, there's a similarity that I've spotted in terms of how these roads sort of just go up and through everything, and you've got these big vistas. We're on the last little bit of this road now, and I think it's of a slightly nicer quality up until we get back to the main north-south road from Leverborough right the way up to Stornoway and the infamous Button Lewis that has a giant lighthouse on it, which I would have put a clip on, but it was quite a long drive and it was just through non-stop houses essentially.
Yeah, that kind of stuff for most of the Tolsta Drive, that's pretty much all the entire northwest of the island is like that. There was a nice stone circle on that way, and we went to check out, we went over a bridge over a big crevice, didn't we, to go to something.
Oh yeah, we did that walkout. I can't remember what it was. It must have been a little island or something.
Yeah, that was fun. There are fun things to do out there, it's just the drive to it's a bit samey.
This is us now kind of making our way back towards Tarbet, and there's a nice little bit after Tarbet. There was one final thing that I just had to do before we call an end to this trip. So that's going to be coming up soon. I'm not going to ruin the rather obvious surprise. I mentioned that we've had 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, and we stopped here because in the distance there's 3 out of 3. So we're heading to the island of Scalpe.
Indeed.
And that features a much more modern bridge, I believe, built in the 90s, and I think it had something to do with Tony Blair on it, so that gives an idea of the age.
Yeah, it was a dedication to Tony Blair, one of the only ones that you'll ever see. I'll refrain from getting too political there. But yeah, back into Tarbert now, which is the home of the distillery as well, the Harris Distillery, which I think, is it mainly gin they do? I don't know if there's
I think
malt.
so at this stage. I'm not entirely sure, but we stopped here for lunch, and something that amused me, it had like a selection of cheeses from around Scotland, and it had St Andrews cheese from Anstruther. Like, yeah, I'm not going to buy Anstruther cheese from here. I'm just going to go to Anstruther and get it if I ever want some.
We went in that shop there, didn't we?
Yeah.
The mini market. It was a bit kind of dusty, wasn't it?
Did the job. It got us a drink.
Yeah.
But no, I enjoyed the lunch. I think I had, I can't remember. I think I had pies. Ewan definitely had a pie.
Don't remember what I had. Possibly had the same. Yeah, but it was nice. It was a nice wee.
Good place,
Yeah.
and I think we ended up spending more money there than we anticipated. But at the same time, we got a good feed.
Yeah, and it's good to support these local businesses as well. Keep them going, and they'll keep you going.
And if you park into the left here, there is a 6-mile path that takes you to a youth hostel that's kind of near the Lewis Harris Divide Lock. So there you go.
Yeah, that's a fun one for next time. We do our hiking holiday with Clisham and that crazy road. But yeah, the road here is continuing on round towards Scalpe, which is not too far off.
You should hopefully soon be able to see the bridge coming up. It's one of those bridges that I guess you get more of it from being below it than you do from going over it.
Yeah, we chilled there for ages, and I just really enjoyed the ebb and flow of the sea under it, and it just felt so peaceful.
And the fact that it felt like a summer's day as well at this point. This was maybe like 1, 2 in the afternoon. Should be coming up on the bridge very soon. But another thing as well, we were seeing all the transatlantic flights going over. We've had that a few times on the islands on Mull as well, on a clear day where you just see them going back and forth, and I find it quite fun to think, what would it be like to be on that flight right now going to Toronto or San Francisco? And then now of course you've got flight radar, so I can actually see where these people are going.
Now, this is us coming to the bridge. We stopped here for ages. There was an abandoned cottage you didn't see it there, but it's just right across the road from where we're parked here. And there's lots of rooms in it, still quite intact. It was fun to have a wee explore around it. And this bridge, we walked over it and went to the other side, and then eventually got back in the car and drove into the island proper. There was a walk to a lighthouse. I don't think we did. We didn't have time to really do this properly, but again, this will be on the radar for the next time we're here.
And again, that bridge felt extremely Norwegian to go back to that point, and the fact that they do tend to link all their islands together with these more substantial, interesting bridges. So I guess that kind of links everything together, because we're coming to the end of our adventure through Scalpe, because we didn't have enough time to really do it justice, but I'd like to go back and see the lighthouse sometime. So there's one last little bonus coming up for us. So just to end everything, let's take a drive back onto the ferry and head over to the Isle of Skye.
Yeah, this was a nice wee ferry. We got a feed on the way into Tarbert.
Cal mac and cheese.
Cal mac and cheese. I don't know if I had that or if I had something else, but
Steak pie perhaps.
possibly, yeah. And a beer, and it was really nice. And then on the way back to Skye, we got some lovely views.
And it was, yeah, just a really nice trip, so thank you so much for watching that if you made it all the way to the end. So we'll maybe do more of these in the future.
Yeah. See you later.
So again, thank you for watching the video that you've just seen. You may have noticed that Andrew and I haven't been in a video together doing something wacky in Scotland for a long time. However, if you want to see some more videos in that vein, I'll pass you to Andrew.
Thank you, Simon. So yeah, I've recently started a YouTube channel. There's coming up to maybe 10 videos on it now, and it's A9 Ray. It's supposed to spell A Grey, but using a 9 as a sort of small g. Inventive, I know. But yes, it's kind of harkens a little bit to some of the old videos that we used to do. A little bit different now, we're a few years older, but Simon's in a few of them, and it's good to get the old sort of partnership back again. We just look at old things around Scotland, things of interest, and give it a rating, and just really, it's just a little bit of history, a little bit of factual stuff, and a little bit of messing around, taking in all your favourite attractions and sites around Scotland. And
it's worth having a look at as well, so I definitely enjoy seeing them again. Enjoyed actually being a part of them on the few videos that I do appear in, because to me I now generally prefer being behind the camera. I feel I'm better off there. I'd imagine anyone that watches me talk probably thinks the exact same thing, but definitely go subscribe to Andrew's new channel and watch his videos, and you might see us having an adventure in the near future.
Yeah. And if you haven't subscribed to K-Burn yet, and you're just watching this, then please do so as well. Subscribe to us both to get our content. You don't have to. You don't have to do anything, but
smash that like button. Hit the bell for notifications.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate when people say that. So anyway, if you enjoy what we do, I'll give you the link so you can go and enjoy more of it.